Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tag. Good to see you guys again, and here to share my comparison between the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G and the Redmi Note 11s. And we're going to do this quick take style here. I just want to share my thoughts of these two phones. You may have seen my kind of first impressions of these phones. I share most of the specs and the details there, but I did also want to do a quick mini Antutu throttling test and just see how they perform. Now, as you guys know, these phones have been a little bit, I don't know if the reception on these has been as strong as previous Redmi Note series phones, but I do think there's still quite a bit to like here from these devices. From the displays, I think that's definitely a high point with 120 Hz, 90 Hz displays. You see the wallpapers, they look very nice. And the build quality of these devices is also solid. Yes, I got the boring black versions of both phones, but I do think in the other colors they do look nice. The camera modules are decent, and they're squared off, so there's that going for them as well. The bottom chin on the 11s could be a little bit better, but I mean, honestly, those aren't really the gripes I have with these phones. In terms of comms, it's all right. And you know what? You're getting 5G on the 11 Pro 5G. So if you want that kind of feature, that's something you'll be able to get here from this phone. In terms of battery life, also solid. You're getting the 5,000 milliamperes you'd want from a Note series phone. And on top of that, you even get faster charging in the case of this Note 11 Pro 5G. To be able to step it up to that 67 watt fast charging, I think is a really great thing. And, all of that's included inside the box. As you know, guys, I mean, that is a positive thing for this phone. But what are my issues with these phones? My big issues with these phones, guys, have got to be the areas where I feel these phones have moved back. And that is mostly in the way of processors and the cameras. The cameras on these phones, I just feel aren't to the level of what we would expect to see to the Redmi Note 10 Pro that we saw last year. This was such a standout device, guys. I mean, how stunning is that? But the main reason why I feel that this phone was so good was because it nailed the essentials. The design was beautiful. The display was beautiful. But most importantly, and I told you guys this, the Snapdragon 730 performance was also great. It was something that long term was going to have its benefits. And in this case, that is where these phones, I think, really fall short. You have a MediaTek G96. I mean, look, it's not a bad chipset. And you have the Snapdragon 695. On paper, folks, those aren't bad chipsets. But next to what Xiaomi was doing last year, they just don't reach to the level of this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And of course, the biggest issue I've had with these releases is in the camera department. Instead of having that really great macro camera from the Redmi Note 10 Pro, you're going back down to a 2 megapixel sticker cam, essentially. But the biggest culprit here is, guys, 100% the video. Rear-facing video on all these phones, 1080p 30, 1080p 30, 4K, 30 FPS. Like, that is just, that's too much to accept. That's just too much to overlook. And I think Xiaomi knows it as well. And, I don't want to keep griping about it because I think there's a lot of reasons you may like the cameras of these phones better. But to go back on this is really just a mistake. But most importantly, guys, why is it that this camera, why is this only 1080p 30? Because of the chipset. And this is where the chipset and the choice of chipset, the choice of, ISP and all that really comes into play. The ISP on the Note 10 Pro, I think, is better than the one on the 695, and it only does up to 1080 video. They can eventually release 1080p 60. There's no reason why Xiaomi can't at least fix that. But in the choice, in the selection of chipset, you pretty much are unable to do 4K. Yes, it's not stabilized, but guess what? It can still do 4K video, and that is the key difference there. So folks, I honestly, I feel that maybe due to chip shortage, maybe due to these other issues that we mentioned in the previous video, that these phones weren't able to truly deliver everything that maybe the company wanted them to deliver. And yet, yes, they're still solid packages. And yes, if you wanted to get 5G on this series of the phone, if you wanted to get a Note 11 Pro 5G, then you can get it, and it's going to offer a pretty solid value. But there are also other phones out there that are now lower in price, like the Poco F3, which I think is a terrific option. The Poco M4 Pro 5G, also a terrific option. And the other the Xiaomi 11 series releases from last year, all those phones I think have gone down in price that it really makes you think, for the starting price of this phone, which if I'm not mistaken is around $349 US, to not have those kind of key features, 4K, improved macro camera, just the improved performance, those kind of things I think are where these phones get hurt the most. And of course, to wrap up, guys, we're going to do this quick Antutu throttling test, and here you see the results. Now, guys, I was going to do a full series of coverage on these phones, including camera tests, throttling tests, but you know what? The lack of interest from you guys just proves to me you really don't want to see much more of this. But just for my own scientific testing here, I want to do a quick throttling test between these two phones and see the results. We're going to do 2 tests only. Let's have a look. And here we go, folks. A quick Antutu throttling test. Just 2 tests on these phones. I want to see what the experience is like. But first, I want to make sure that for both of these, they are on performance mode. There you see, you can't even select that, though, here on the Note 11s. Interesting. Very interesting. Anyways, going out and going into Antutu now. There we go. Test again. And let's see how these phones do after 2 tests of Antutu. Let's have a look. Alright, folks, test number 1 completed, and there you see the results. 406,000, 313,000, and a temperature change of 4.9 versus 6.5. The phones don't feel too warm. It's less about, the temperatures, because I do think, these types of chipsets should handle pretty well. But what I really want to see is if there is any throttling. But these results aren't really that impressive when you think that the Redmi Note 10 Pro was able to do very similar results, and not just that, is able to do, I think, arguably better GPU capabilities and better ISP capabilities than these phones. But let's test again one more time to wrap up this final review of these phones. So that is it, guys, and you can see the results holding pretty steady here. Actually pretty impressed that they did not drop or dip too much, only a 2.5 degree increase. Nothing too incredible here, but at least you can be assured if you do pick these up that they will not be really sweating it. Still cool to the touch on the back for both of these phones. So that's it for this quick take final review of the Note 11 Pro 5G and the Note 11s. And my final verdict, guys, I really wanted to like these phones. I really wanted them to be the standouts that I thought they would be. After reviewing, the China variant of this Note 11 Pro Plus back in November, I was pretty impressed, and I really did think if they included that Dimensity 920 in this phone with all the other features, it was going to be a slam dunk. It turns out they kind of skimped here on the global versions, and you're just not getting the same level of value that you would typically get. I don't know if it is internal decisions, the chip shortage, or something else, but I just hate to say this, these aren't the phones, guys, that I really recommend you upgrade to. If you're using a Redmi Note 10 Pro right now, stick to it. And the fact that this phone can do 4K 30 FPS and these two cannot, despite being touted as camera champs, I really don't think it's acceptable that you can go back on such an important feature like 4K in a new generation. Xiaomi, I don't know what you were thinking here, but I hate to say it, these phones miss the mark. But if you do pick up these phones, just know they're still going to offer solid daily use, solid battery life, and really get these phones for one reason: the displays. The displays are standout, and I do think they go toe-to-toe with the best displays that we've seen in the Note series to date. But hit me up in the comments, guys. A bit of a controversial take here, but I really needed to share my honest thoughts on these two devices. But hit me up in the comments. And you know what? Let me answer this. If I did think to pick up one of these, which would I get? I think you're better off going with the Note 11s. It's offering better cameras, or at least similar cameras to the Pro, and it's offering 90 Hz, which should be better on the battery. If you can deal with a slightly larger chin, I think this is the better buy overall. Which would you pick of these two? I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon for future updates. And guys, this was kind of a different format for these ones. Not as much editing here, but a little bit more honest and straightforward talk about these devices. I hope you enjoyed this kind of different format. Hopefully in the future I'll be going back to a more full review for these devices. But Xiaomi, you also got to ship me these products before the embargo. No excuses here. I had no time to review these before and make any kind of a high quality video in this case. So definitely hope that next time that will be the case. But that's it for this one, and this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one. So much, man. I really hoped for so much. Unfortunately, we missed the mark. Oh well.